The cake was already set up when I arrived. 3 tiers, white fondant, little sugar roses on every layer. I stood at the entrance of the venue and thought, my sister has good taste. Then I found my name card that was tucked into a folding chair outside the main hall. Not near the entrance, not at a cocktail table by the door. Outside, around the corner from the coat check, next to a folding table they were using to stack empty boxes and extension cords. Someone had written my name in the same calligraphy font as everyone else's, like that made it normal, like the font made it okay. I stood there for a moment with my purse over one shoulder and a gift bag in my other hand. The bag had tissue paper in it, blush pink, because that was my sister's wedding color. I had driven 2 hours to be here. I had taken Friday off work. I had bought a dress I couldn't really afford. I set the gift on the folding table, next to my name card. Then I picked up my purse, walked back through the entrance, and kept walking. No one saw me leave. My sister's name is Daphne. She is 3 years older than me and has always been, according to our mother, the one who had it together. When Daphne got straight A's, my mother framed her report card. When I got straight A's the following year, my mother said, "You're finally catching up." Daphne was the one who went to the right college, dated the right people, made the right choices. I was the one who, according to our father, marched to her own drummer, which was his polite way of saying he didn't understand me and had stopped trying. I'm not saying I had a terrible childhood. I had a house, food, parents who were present. But there is a specific kind of loneliness that comes from growing up in a room where everyone else seems to be speaking a language you were never taught. I watched my parents light up when Daphne walked in. I watched the air in the room change. And I spent most of my 20s telling myself it was fine, it was normal, it was just how families worked. I believed that for a long time. I stopped believing it the day I found the group chat. It was 2 years before the wedding. I had borrowed my mother's phone to look up a restaurant address. Mine had died in the car, and when I handed it back, a notification popped up from a group chat called Family Updates. I wasn't in it. That part I noticed first. The preview showed my sister's name, my mother's name, my father's name. I didn't mean to read it. I read it. My mother had sent a message that morning. It said, "Daphne found a venue, the Hargrove Estate. We're going to help with a deposit. Don't mention to my name, yet you know how she gets." I didn't ask how I get. I didn't ask what the deposit was. I handed the phone back and said the address was wrong. We should try Google Maps on hers, and spent the rest of that dinner watching my family talk about a version of me they'd apparently agreed on without me. That night in my car, I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes. I wasn't angry. That surprised me. I was just tired, the kind of tired that settles into your jaw and your shoulders and doesn't go away with sleep. I decided something in that parking lot. I didn't know exactly what yet, but I decided. Daphne got engaged to a man named Calloway. Everyone called him Cal. He was tall and quiet and laughed a little too loudly at his own jokes, but he was kind to Daphne, and that was what mattered. I liked Cal. That part is important. This story isn't about Cal. The engagement party was at my parents' house. I drove up, brought a bottle of wine, hugged Daphne, shook Cal's hand. My mother pulled me into a hug and said, "Doesn't she look beautiful?" while looking at Daphne. I said yes. I stood by the snack table for most of the evening and talked to my aunt, who is the only person in my family who asks me questions and then actually waits for the answers. My aunt's name is Vera. No, wait. Different name. My aunt goes by her initials. Everyone calls her TJ. She's my dad's sister. She's been divorced twice and makes her own wine in her garage and does not care at all what anyone thinks of her, which is probably why I've always liked her. TJ pulled me aside near the end of the party. She said, "You doing okay, sweetheart?" I said yes. She looked at me the way she always does, like she's reading something written behind my eyes. Then she said, "Daphne asked your mom if you could be a bridesmaid. Your mom said you'd probably be too busy." I was not too busy. No one had asked me. The wedding invitation arrived 6 weeks later. It was beautiful, heavy cardstock, gold letterpress, that same calligraphy font. It was addressed to me +1, which was generous, since I had been single for a year and a half and everyone in my family knew it. I turned the envelope over in my hands. I opened it. Inside, a handwritten note from Daphne. I know we'd had our distance. I'd really love for you to be there. It would mean a lot to me. I sat with that note for a long time. I'd really love for you to be there. Not, I'm sorry we've been distant. Not, I want to change that. Just be there. Witness it. Show up and smile and eat the 3-tier cake and go home. I RSVP'd yes, because she was my sister. Because despite everything, when I imagined not going, something in my chest hurt in a way I couldn't explain away. I should have listened to that feeling instead of overriding it. The drive to the venue took 2 hours and 14 minutes. I listened to a podcast about deep-sea creatures for the first hour because I needed to think about something that wasn't the wedding. Did you know there are fish that produce their own light in the dark? They carry it in front of them, dangling like a lantern, moving through total blackness. I thought about that the whole drive. The Hargrove estate was exactly what it sounds like. A long gravel driveway, oak trees, a main building with arched windows and ivy on the stone walls. The parking lot attendant smiled at me and handed me a program with Daphne and Cal's initials on the cover. I followed the signs toward the main entrance. A woman with a clipboard met guests at the door. Young, maybe 22, wearing an earpiece and a very serious expression. I gave her my name. She looked at the list, looked again. Then she said carefully, "Of course, you're listed in the secondary seating area." "The secondary seating area," I repeated. "Just around the corner here?" She gestured. She didn't make eye contact. The secondary seating area was a hallway that connected the main entrance to the coat check. It was a nice hallway. The Hargrove estate had nice everything, but it had no windows and the overhead lights were that flat, institutional kind that make everyone look tired. There were 3 chairs set up there. 3. One had someone else's name on it. I didn't recognize it. One was empty, and one had my name, in calligraphy, on a little card. Against the wall behind the chairs, a folding table. On the table, 2 empty centerpiece boxes, a spool of ribbon, and an extension cord coiled like a sleeping snake. I was seated in the hallway of my sister's wedding, while my parents were presumably inside at a table with a real centerpiece and a view of the dance floor, while Daphne's college roommates were inside. While people my family had known for 3 months were inside, I was in the hallway. I put my gift bag on the folding table. I smoothed the blush tissue paper so it looked nice. I straightened the card with my name on it so it was parallel to the edge of the table. Small, pointless things. The kind of things you do when you're trying to keep your hands busy so the rest of you doesn't fall apart. Then I picked up my purse. I walked back through the entrance. The parking lot attendant said, "Have a great evening," as I passed him. I said, "You too." I found my car. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, breathing. Then I started the engine and drove away. Here's what I had left behind on the folding table. Inside the blush tissue paper, inside the gift bag, an envelope. Inside the envelope, 12 printed pages. They were screenshots, emails mostly, but also 2 text message chains. All of them were between Daphne and a man named Preston, who was not her fiancé. The emails went back 14 months. I had found them 8 weeks earlier, completely by accident, when Daphne had asked me to help her log into an old email account she'd been locked out of. She knew I was good with tech, and I had found them in her sent folder before she realized I'd seen anything. I had spent 8 weeks deciding what to do with what I knew. I want to be honest about this part. I didn't leave the envelope there because I was angry about the hallway seat. The hallway seat was just the moment I realized nothing was going to change. That my family would arrange chairs in a literal hallway and put my name on one, and consider that sufficient. That there was no version of staying that ended differently. So I left. And I left the envelope. Not as revenge. As honesty finally, from someone who had been quiet for a very long time. The envelope was labeled, "For Cal. Please give this to the groom. I found out what happened from TJ, who texted me that night at 11:37 p.m. She called instead when I didn't respond right away. 'Where are you?' was the first thing she said. I told her I was home, 2 hours away, that I had left before the ceremony. Silence. Then, oh sweetheart. TJ told me what she'd seen. The ceremony had gone as planned. She hadn't known anything was wrong yet. It was during the reception, about 40 minutes in, when someone found the gift bag. One of the venue staff had been clearing the hallway. Apparently they hadn't expected guests to actually be seated there long-term and had brought the bag inside. thinking it was misplaced. Set it on the gift table. A few minutes later, Cal's best man, who was doing a round of the gift table, picked it up to move it to a safer spot and saw the label. For Cal. Please give this to the groom. He found Cal at the edge of the dance floor. TJ said she watched Cal open the envelope, read the first page and go completely still. The way she described it, like all the sound went out of him at once. His face didn't collapse. It just emptied. Like something that had been running inside him stopped. He folded the pages carefully, put them in the inside pocket of his jacket. Then he walked over to where Daphne was talking to her college roommates, took her gently by the arm and walked her out of the reception hall. TJ said she could hear Daphne's voice, even through the closed door to the side room. Not the words, just the pitch. That specific pitch that means something is broken that you can't put back together. My mother, TJ said, started crying 20 minutes later when it became clear that Cal was not coming back out. My father stood very still near the bar and didn't say anything. Daphne's friends didn't know what to do. The DJ kept playing because no one told him to stop, and so there was music, upbeat, celebratory music, playing through the whole thing. At some point, my mother asked TJ where I was. TJ said, "I don't know," which was almost true. My phone lit up like a switchboard for 3 days. My mother called 11 times the first night and left 4 voicemails, each one more confused than the last. My father sent a single text that said, "Call your mother." Daphne didn't call. I expected that. I listened to my mother's voicemails. I want to be honest about this too. The first 2 were angry. She used the word vindictive. She used the phrase, "You always make everything about yourself," which is a remarkable thing to say to someone you seated in a hallway. The third voicemail was quieter. She said she didn't understand why I'd done what I'd done. The fourth one, she was crying. She said, "I don't know where I went wrong with you two. You two. Like Daphne's choices and my choices were the same problem. Like we were both equally responsible for this outcome." I called her back on the 3rd day. I said, "Mom, you put my name on a chair in a hallway at her wedding. I'm your daughter too." Long silence. She said, "It wasn't supposed to be like that. The seating got complicated at the last minute." I said, "Mom." Another silence. Then, very quietly, "I know." That was all. Just, "I know." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "That shouldn't have happened." Just, "I know." 2 words that contained maybe a little of what I'd needed to hear for 30 years. I didn't cry on that phone call, but I cried after. Not because anything was fixed, because it finally seemed like she could see, however slightly, the outline of the thing we'd never been able to name. Cal filed paperwork within the week. I don't know all the details because it wasn't my business to know. I had given him information and what he did with it was his. I heard through TJ that he had actually suspected something before the wedding, that there had been behavior he couldn't explain, small things that didn't add up. Apparently the envelope confirmed what part of him had already started to fear. He wasn't blindsided by the fact. He was blindsided by the scale of it. I think about Cal sometimes. I hope he's okay. I think he deserved to know. Here is something I have thought about a lot in the months since. There is a version of that day where I walk into the hallway, find my chair, and sit in it. I watch the ceremony through a doorway, or maybe I don't see it at all. I eat whatever they give me, if they remember to give me anything. I drive 2 hours home. I put my dress in the closet. I call my mother sometime the following week and say the wedding was nice. And we all continue, just like we always continued, everybody pretending that the shape of our family was fine, that the arrangements made sense, that I didn't mind. That version exists. I lived adjacent to it for years, but I did not sit down in that hallway chair. I have been asked, since then, if I feel guilty. I'll be honest, I don't. Not about leaving. Not about the envelope. I feel something more complicated than guilt. Something like grief, maybe. For the family I thought I had. Or the one I hoped might still be possible. Daphne and I have not spoken. I don't know if we will. Part of me still hopes that we might, someday, when enough time has passed that we can look at each other without the weight of everything that's been unsaid crashing down all at once. My mother and I have talked 5 times since the wedding. The conversations are careful and short. She asks about my job. I ask about hers. Once she asked if I was seeing anyone, and I said no, and she said, "You'll find someone," and that was the whole thing. But she calls. She keeps calling. I don't know what to do with that yet. My father has not called. TJ came to visit me last month. She brought a bottle of wine she'd made herself. A red, which she said wasn't really ready yet, but she couldn't wait. We sat on my back porch in the late afternoon, and she told me about her second divorce. And I told her about the group chat I'd found 2 years ago, the one with family updates and the name in my absence woven through every message. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting. Then she said, "You know, I always knew you were the one who saw clearly. I was just waiting for you to trust what you saw. I didn't know how to answer that, so I just poured us both more wine. The dress is still in my closet. I haven't worn it again. I keep meaning to have it taken somewhere, altered maybe, worn at some occasion where it's just a nice dress and nothing more. I haven't done it yet. I think I'm still giving it some time. I drove past a wedding venue a few weeks ago, different city, totally unrelated. I saw a woman out front in a white dress, laughing at something someone was saying off to the side. Just laughing, face open, totally unself-conscious. I don't know anything about her life or her family, or whether the people inside loved her the way she deserved. But she looked like someone for whom the day was exactly what it was supposed to be. I didn't feel angry watching her. I didn't feel sad, exactly. I felt something more like clarity, the particular kind that only comes after you finally stopped explaining yourself to people who weren't listening. My name is still spelled correctly in calligraphy on that name card, wherever it ended up. I like to think someone eventually threw it away. A clean end to something that should never have been set up that way to begin with. I drove home. I made dinner. I fed my cat, who is named Biscuit and has no opinions about weddings or family dynamics, and loves me completely and without condition, which is more than I can say for several humans I'm related to. That evening I sat by my window and watched the light change from gold to purple to the particular deep blue that means the day is actually done. And I thought, I don't owe anyone a seat at my table who wouldn't give me one at theirs. I'm still learning to mean that. Some days I mean it completely. Some days it's just something I say to myself in the mirror, until I believe it again. But I'm still here, still walking out of rooms that were never meant for me, still finding my way into ones that are. That's enough for now. That's more than enough. I thought a lot about what it actually means to be invisible to people who are supposed to see you. Not invisible like a stranger on the street. That's just anonymity, and anonymity doesn't hurt. I mean invisible the way I was at that wedding. Named, invited, assigned a chair, and still treated like someone who didn't quite belong in the room where things that mattered were happening. What I did that day, leaving what I left, wasn't something I decided in the heat of the moment. It came from years of watching and saying nothing and hoping the situation would correct itself, the way you hope a small leak in the ceiling will somehow seal on its own. It doesn't. It just spreads. And eventually, you're standing in a hallway next to a folding table in extension cords, holding a gift bag with blush tissue paper, and something in you goes very quiet and very clear. That clarity, I've come to understand, is what happens when you finally stop overriding what you actually know. I knew that group chat was wrong when I read it. I knew the invitation note was asking me to witness without being seen. I knew, standing in that hallway, that no last-minute seating complication had put my chair there. Someone had made a choice, and the choice said something. I just finally let myself hear it. Cal deserved the truth. Not because Davney owed me anything in that moment, but because he was about to build a life on a foundation that had been quietly hollowed out. There's nothing righteous about letting someone walk into that. The fact that telling him also meant the day collapsed. That wasn't something I caused. The collapse was already there, underneath everything, waiting. I just stopped being the person whose silence helped hold it up. What I've had to sit with, honestly, is the grief. Not guilt. I've examined that carefully, and I don't find it there. But grief, yes. For the version of my family that existed, mostly in my hope. For the relationship with my sister that could have been something different if things had gone differently long ago. For my mother, who I think loves me in a way she genuinely doesn't know how to show, which is its own kind of tragedy. Here's what I believe now. After everything, the choices we make about how to treat people don't stay private. They accumulate, They show up in where we seat someone at a table, in which name gets left off a group chat, and whether we ask our daughter if she's doing okay or just assume she's fine because it's easier. Every small choice is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming, and eventually, the results get counted. I didn't walk out of that wedding to punish anyone. I walked out because staying would have required me to pretend that the chair in the hallway was acceptable, and I had run completely out of pretend. That's not bravery. It's just what happens when you finally take yourself seriously enough to stop absorbing things that were never yours to carry. TJ told me once that clarity is expensive. You pay for it with every year you spent confused. I think she's right, but I also think it's the only currency that actually buys you anything real. I'm still here, still figuring it out. And my chair is wherever I put it.